Yeah, this is fine.
Hello, welcome everyone to my first ever review style video. Like everyone else does on the internet nowadays, because nowadays everyone needs to make like a 2 or 3 hour long video review talking about the thing they want to talk about. Oh, don't worry, I hope it won't be as long, I hope. Anyway, I'm not sure if you guys heard about this, but there's like this really obscure franchise that no one talks about. I haven't even heard of it. It starts with a POKM, Pokemon. I'm sure you heard about it, the highest grossing media franchise. I mean, it's went for everything from video games to comic books to shows to books to OVAs to merchandise to blockbuster movies, from video games to spin offs to manga to, whatever the heck this is. But have you ever wondered, how Pokemon is like very kid friendly, which isn't really a big deal. I mean, it makes sense. Like, of course, being the highest grossing media franchise, you want to appeal to everyone, from adults to fetuses, obviously. However, doing this like chill, like innocent tone, sort of like, being, kid friendly and all of that, playing it safe, it kind of just leads with like, a lot of people feeling like, they're kind of out of it. Like some people feel like they like grew out of it, sort of, because they want all this kid crap. They want something more dark and serious. And unfortunately, they can't get that. I mean, we kind of did somewhat get that, but not really to like the overly extent, like the hardcore gore, if you know what I mean. Or what if they want something that's just a bit more challenging? Like, what if they want to make these games that are made for babies into somewhat of a Dark Souls dream? This results in the creation of what we call the Pokemon Nuzlocke. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the past couple decades, which I'm honestly surprised by, I mean, by this point you probably should know what a Nuzlocke is, or at least heard about it, but I'll try breaking it down anyway. Now, there are two super rules to follow with Nuzlocks, and they're pretty much the common method. And, bro, freaking mouse. I can't move my mouse. Are you serious? Come on. Rule number one. If a Pokemon faints or ever loses all its HP, it's dead. It's dead. It's gonzo. Bye bye, done. It doesn't matter if it's a legendary, a starter, or shiny, it's dead. But hey, bye bye, pal. And the second rule is you can only catch one Pokemon per route, slash town, slash city, you get it. Basically, what this means is if you want to catch, like, I don't know, a Pokemon that's really strong, valuable, and can really be a good asset to your team, well, you have to pretty RNG gods that you can get on your first encounter, because if you don't, well, most of the time you might get, like, I don't know, like Zigzagoon or some other Pokemon that is, like, completely trash and worthless. So yeah, you have to use them, or either use them for purposes, or just don't even bother putting them on the team. Pretty simple stuff. But what if there was a comic that did all of that? What if there was a story, a motive? What if there's like something out there that not only combines Pokemon but also the Nuzlocke itself? What if it makes a story about it more grand, more more high stakes, more existential, more serious, more gory, more edgy, quote unquote? Well, I present to you the best Pokemon story ever, fan made, by the way. And that story is. It's Festival of Champions. Seriously, you have to read it, dude. Like, seriously, why haven't you read it? Read it. It's peak. Okay, for real though, even though it would be cool to talk about this fan-made manga, I think a lot of people already talked about this enough and why it's so good and why you should read it, so I don't need to be the billionth person to tell you that. I want to talk to you about stuff that's more obscure, more, something that a lot of people don't pick up on, or stuff that's been there for like a long time, but, no one's ever like picked it up or talked about it or even mentioned it. And that's what I'm here to discuss and bring you up to. I found something very special. Today, I'm going to show you a fan-made Pokemon Nuzlocke comic that nobody's ever talked about, but is secretly one of the greatest things I have ever read. Maybe not like, peak cinema or anything like that. Maybe, well, to me it is. Maybe not to all of you, but this comic, it's something special. Alright, enough dilly-dallying, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, It's a Hard Life. Now, before we get started on why this is absolutely peak, we need to first talk about the author and creator himself, basically. He goes by the name of Wakework, he, she, it, whatever, I don't know. This comic was created back all the way in 2011. That's like almost 15 years ago. Seriously, in that time, I could have a child or have a stable career. That's crazy. And you gotta remember, 2011 was a pretty goated year. Like, we got, games like Sonic Generations, Skyrim, Skyward Sword, the Wii U being announced, Nyan Cat. This comic is mainly an adaptation of like the author's playthrough, like a Nuzlocke that they did of playing Pokemon Fire and Leaf Green, and adapted it into comic form. Now, that isn't really out of the ordinary to adapt that stuff in the comic form. Actually, in fact, a lot of like Nuzlockers, mainly people that played Pokemon Nuzlocks, often like adapt a lot of their like playthroughs of playing Nuzlocks in like video format or other types of like media in order to express their playthrough, basically. You got the common ways to express Nuzlocke, such as Let's Plays, Twitch streams, fan fiction. You got all of it, basically. So I think it's safe to say that Nuzlocks have been around for quite a while, which is why they keep inventing and reinventing new ones. So, meaning another one, and 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 another one. There's like a bajillion freaking Nuzlocks. Okay, enough dilly-dallying. Let's just get back to the actual comic we're supposed to talk about instead of, blabbing on for like 40 minutes of nothing but filler. Now, of course, with any comic, you obviously have to have, like, art, obviously, to reflect the comic. Now, because of how much I'm hyping up this comic, you might think, like, it's like the best thing ever drawn by mankind, basically, for how much I think it's really good. And while I don't think it's badly drawn or anything like that, it's not gonna, like, blow your mind or, like, make you think, like, it's, peak cinema or anything like that. It's definitely not, like, peak art if we're talking, like, whatever tastes, I guess, you have, or what you think it's really good. And because the art that, well, not all the time, but most of the time, especially back then, it looks like, yeah. Now, I know it may be hard for you to believe, but believe me, I've seen worse drawing like this. Believe me, okay? Now, I know it might sound like I'm like saying it's like a sin or like, it's bad to be drawn with like, I don't know, Sharpie or whatever it's drawn by, but believe me, the art style is not like the most atrocious thing ever, I think. It does get better, okay? Trust me. As you keep reading the art, as well as, the panels themselves, they start to form their more unique identity as you keep going. And in fact, some of these do look pretty good. But of course, not all of them are hitters, obviously. Not every panel is going to look stunning or striking, but when it hits, it hits. God, does it hit. One of my favorite things about reading this comic is just how much personality and life is like put into the pages. Mainly down to the characters. Like, Clockwork does a really good job at like showing and like expressing, character expressions so much. Like, you just, with no dialogue, like you can just tell what a character is thinking or showing, basically, just by looking at their body language, like the way they move, express, their eyes, all of it. It just makes the comic feel much more fun to read because it just adds so much life to the characters, the way they move, express, it just adds so much movement to the pages, like, as you're reading through it. It just makes it much more fun and enjoyable, which I like. Like, if you found a Pokemon or a character that looked, stiff and lifeless and awkward and had, like, little to no personality to it, then this comic just adds so much more to that. Like, seriously. Like they literally made Victory Bell, like, fun and, like, quirky to look at. Victory Bell. Like, that's an accomplishment right there. Like, come on, like, for real. Like, have you ever seen a Victory Bell emote like this ever? No, probably not. If you did, it was probably somewhere else. Now, from what I'm describing, you might think, oh, okay, this doesn't look that bad. I mean, for all you keep describing, this is like the edgiest, darkest, thing ever in the like a fan-made Pokemon thing, Like, why do you think this is like so dark and edgy? From what you're describing so far, it looks, sort of, like lighthearted, fun, and maybe a little like kind of edgy at times, but still, fine. So why is it? Like, why do you think like, wait, are you like, I don't know, trying to hype it up? You're trying to say like this is too edgy or too gruesome? Oh, you naive child. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, my guy, because trust me, when shit gets real, it gets real. Like, in the same chapter, like, it will hit you like whiplash, like how insanely quick the tone just changes. Like, for one, like, panel, like, for like a brief couple panels, like, this, like, comic goes from this, silly, goofy, sort of, on the run type comedy story to freaking JoJo levels of violence. Look at this crap. That Raticate's dead. Like, just as dead as the Fury. Like, the stuff that happens in this comic just feels like its own version of, like, Golden Wind. Maybe not, like, like, on the same level. Like, there's no, like, mafia or anything like that. I mean, there is technically a Japanese mafia in Pokemon, but that's aside the point. It's definitely influenced from, like, way more bloodier and gorier, like, movies and shows. I believe that the creator of the comic was mostly inspired by, I believe, Brain Dead, I think, a comedy horror movie. I haven't watched the movie yet, but I'm pretty sure, judging by the title, it's named Brain Dead. I'm gonna assume it's pretty nasty, I'll say. Like, look how intimidating, like, they made Gyarados look. Like, my god. That's one of the main strengths about Clockwork, is that they're very good at, like, making expressive facial animations. Like, yeah, obviously we have these goofy ones, we have some goofy faces, and some funny faces, and some serious faces. And this. What the fuck? This comic also depicts battles, mainly, Pokemon battles, as more like life or death, basically. Like in the show, like, the TV shows and games, like it's more like it's sort of life and death, but like it's, toned down a bit. Like at most when Pokemon take damage or like get hit or anything like that, they like get scrapes or they faint basically, simple stuff like that. But in the comic, battles are treated less like sportsmanship and more like war. It's mostly thanks to it being adapted from a Nuzlocke, obviously, and of course, because it's from a Nuzlocke, like Pokemon, when they faint, they die, basically. So because of that, it adds like a whole, like, layer and more, stakes to the battles because, one of your favorite Pokemon might die. And considering that it's of course based off, the author's playthrough of the game, we don't know who's gonna die, basically. Like, anyone can die. Like the main starter, like a side Pokemon, anything can happen. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, some of the stuff that happens in these fights is, like, really gruesome. Like, you got Pokemon, like, losing, like getting eaten, bitten, stabbed, getting blinded, like, losing, like, maybe body parts, or getting blasted, and like there's like this like one panel of like Johto doing summon to an Ekans that I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to like censor or like tone it down because YouTube will age restrict the hell out of me if I try showing this on the public platform. So hey, technically that could be a good thing if you know what I'm saying. Okay, that's enough talking about the art for now. All right, let's just move on from talking about blood and gore, and let's just move on to talking about instead something that's more important. Because honestly, at the end of the day, no matter how much blood or gore or I don't know swear words you put into your comic or any story, it's not gonna like matter that much. All that matters, obviously, what matters the most, of course, is the story and character. So let's just talk about them, and just kind of for me personally, just gush over them a little bit. So yeah, let's do it. I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's go. All right, enough about all the art and stuff. It's time to talk about the main juicy course that we're all ready to dive ourselves into. That, of course, being the story. Now, if you ever played a Pokemon game before, you probably are familiar with like how every Pokemon game starts off. You know, I'll just give you like a quick rundown of how every Pokemon story begins, basically. Here it goes. You're a 10-year-old boy from some quiet town, which isn't even a town because it's so small, but it barely qualifies as a town, but who cares? You basically wake up one day, your mom tells you, have a fun journey, basically, go downstairs, go outside, and go touch some grass, but actually don't touch the grass because the grass is actually deadly. Go to Professor's house, go get the starter, get some balls, and then go on your journey, basically. Along the way, you probably catch some mons and beat up some people, and then also beat up the big people that have the big boy badges, the gym badges. You gotta get those. Get all of them, beat your rival on the way, fight an evil organization that you completely ruin their dreams, basically. Go outside, go back to touch some grass, actually go touch into some mountains somewhere, because there you'll find the Pokemon League, basically. And there you'll fight the 4 elite trainers, the Elite Four. Beat them up, then beat the champion, and then you become the champion. Repeat that for every generation. Now, the comic is mainly an adaptation of the author's, playthrough of their Nuzlocke. However, because it's an adaptation of their Nuzlocke playthrough, it's technically also an adaptation of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, you might think this might, be a simple, retelling of the original game's plot and story, and, you might think that it, ends just like it does in, the actual game, basically. But in actuality, you're kind of wrong. While, yes, the entire comic is definitely, taking the story of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green and, adapting it in comic form, it's not entirely similar to that game's story. What I mean by that is, while it does follow the same structure and plot beats just like in the actual game, it takes its own creative liberties and shakes the plot up so much that it honestly feels like its own unique story, basically. It has the similar locations, gym leaders, characters and all that, but the stuff that happens and what the characters do and, all the locations and what reason they're doing here for is entirely different. In other words, it's basically follows its own unique story, completely divergent from the original plot. Let me just give you a quick rundown of how the story starts, okay? Alright, here we go. You're a 10-year-old kid from Palatown that got kicked out by her own mother because she wants to sleep with her professor.
What?
With nothing to do, you go outside to touch some grass, but actually don't touch grass because the professor's telling you that it's bad to touch grass about a Pokemon after he's done bursting the balls on your mom.
What?
He takes you back to his lab so you can have a Pokemon to defend yourself, go to the lab, meet the Spawn Satan himself, get a Pokemon, and you pick, of course, Bulbasaur, the best starter, no bias whatsoever, I'm not biased, you are. Bart, your rival challenges you to fight you in a battle, which you begrudgingly accept, fight him, and of course you obviously lose. Like, actually lose. So then after experiencing the fatality of life, the professor gives you a different Pokemon starter to pick from because you were just too crap at the game to actually have your starter alive, so you had to pick a different one just to make up for it. And so with that, you go on your journey to catch some mons and understand the cruel meaning of life, as well as understand the futility of life and death itself. How fantastic. See guys, it's just like the video game. Speaking of characters, one character I find very fascinating and very interesting is none other than the protagonist herself, and that's Robin. Not because of the amount of trauma she has to go through. Dear God, the amount of trauma this 10-year-old has to go through, oh my God. It's mostly down to her personality and motives. If you compare her to like other protagonists from the Pokemon franchise, from the TV shows, movies, and all that, you can tell that Robin is very different from a lot of them. A lot of these main protagonists in Pokemon often follow a pretty simple checklist. They're brave, they're sure of themselves, they're fearless in dangerous situations, life or death battles, all of that. Robin is the complete opposite of that checklist. She's super timid, very unsure of herself, and not only that, she's scared and terrified of literally everything. Which, if you read the comic, you can't blame her for. It's definitely a 9-day difference comparing her to, like, Ash Ketchum, for example. But I feel like that's what makes her so much more interesting. For me personally, she doesn't really feel like, I don't know, like a self-insert of the main author or anything, or I don't know, some weird power fantasy where like, they're like the most, like the best person ever, basically. They're good at everything. They get all the people, all the friends, they get all the cool, like overpowered, abilities and moves, and like they bend the entire world around them, that type of person. But Robin, she's never like that. In fact, quite the opposite. She loses. And by God, does she lose. By her flaws, as well as the world being against her, she still is a kid at the end of the day, and she still has a good heart deep down, even after all of the, torture she had to go through. She still loves her Pokemon, she still wants to see the world, and she still just wants to enjoy life, obviously. He just wants to make sure that everyone is still alive and not dead, basically. And despite all the fear and horror she has to go through, as long as she has to fight for her Pokemon, their lives, her life, then it's totally worth it to her. And I just feel like that makes her such a more, fun and more interesting character to root for, honestly. Like, seriously, just please, just give her some tissues, give her a lot of teddy bears. Like, my God, like, somebody give this kid the therapy. Jeez, where are the therapists in the Pokemon world? Now, talking about a flawed and relatable and character that gets treated crap by the world is obviously much more fun and interesting to talk about, as well as root for. But what if there's someone that we just absolutely love to hate? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the biggest D-hole in all of Pokemon. Yes, I'm telling you right now, this is the worst character ever. And it's gonna make everyone shock in utter disgustment. That's right, everybody. We're gonna be talking about him, the man, the myth, the absolute degeneracy. That person is Gary motherfucking Oak. I'm just gonna say right now, everyone, Gary is the biggest D-hole in all of It's a Hard Life. Like, I'm being dead ass right now. Like, you find like he was like, rude and jerkish in like the original Indigo League series. Oh my God, you thought he was a complete D-hole in that? I'm telling you right now, the Gary I'm about to show you in this story is gonna make this Gary look like the nicest guy on the planet. Like, I'm being honest right now. This Gary is a straight up menace. He's rude and mean to everyone, even his own dad. He literally actively goes out of his way to make Robin's life a living hell and make it more miserable and put her in even worse spots than he has been before. And not only that, he not only kills like her own Pokemon not once but twice. And when like she's crying over it, she's like, "What a crybaby, like, bro! What? That's not normal. Like, that's like if someone just came up to someone's house, came over, brought a gun, and shot the dog, and he just said, "Oh, wow, what a crybaby, right? Right? You're crying over an animal? What are you, stupid?" Like, dude, like, what? Like, seriously, the whole reason why this happened in the first place, the reason why Robin is literally in this spot to begin with, and why they're so wanted by the police to begin with, is because of him. It's because of Gary. Like, this whole thing started all because of Gary. He literally woke up one day feeling dangerous, and for whatever reason, he wanted to commit violence. Like, what's the reason for him to do all of this to her? Like, was it because like she stole her favorite pen? Was it because he like went to the wrong bathroom? Is it because like she beat him in Smash Bros? I don't know. They didn't explain what the reason is, so I'm just gonna have to guess. And then later on in the comic, like I think it was like chapter 10, like during like the Pokemon Tower like chapter of the series, like Gary's there basically, and because of that, like he's kind of like there because Robin's there basically, and he's like, okay, we have no choice, guys. Like, he's a criminal, a rotten thief. We gotta take some action. We gotta take responsibility. Wow, good for you, Gary. Wow, I like that you're finally like being responsible for once and actually doing the right thing. You know, doesn't like say change the fact I still hate your guts, but hey, he's learning, and it still doesn't change the fact that you literally caused this all in the first place. But you know, it's good. It's all right, guys. Okay, he's redeemed. It's fine. It's okay. It happens. It's just a little oopsie to like pinpoint all crimes on like a person that you've been bullying on for like literally no reason. No, it's fine. It's fine, guys. I don't see any problem with that. Good job, Gary. Here's your freaking badge. Have a holly jolly day. Fuck Gary Oak. All my homies hate Gary Oak. I'm glad your Eradicate's dead. Now let's move on from talking about like the human characters, the Pokemon trainers, and stop bullying a 10-year-old for like 10 seconds. And let's talk about like, the main course of I Say the After Story. And I feel like the main reason why, this story I feel like for me is beloved. And that's the main characters themselves, honestly, besides the actual main character. And that's the Pokemon. Because this might sound surprising, very surprising, but the Pokemon in this comic act like people. Wow, big fucking shock replay. Wow, Pokemon acting like people? Wow, dude. Really breaking new ground here with that, huh? And that, my friends, is the best Pokemon Nuzlocke you can't play.